Well, hi there, folks, and welcome to 40K by Night. My name is Steve Joel. I'm your host for this very chaos-focused episode in which we're going to look at one specific detachment of the Chaos Knights and get two of the very best players in the world, particularly with Chaos Knights, to tell you all about it. And we're going to give you the opportunity to ask some questions as well, particularly through our Patreon and our Discord. While we're on the subject of the Patreon, I do want to do a little shout out. Even since I recorded an episode yesterday, we've had a couple more brand new members. So Eric and Will, welcome. Slab, Surfer and Arson and Setch. And Toby and Micah and John and Joe are all new within the last few days. So thanks so much for joining up on the Patreon. Really do appreciate it. I wanted to let you know about the YouTube channel. If you're listening to us audio only, oh my goodness, why would you not want all of this handsomeness with my two special guests today on the YouTube? Go and watch it on YouTube. 40kbynight.com has all the links you're going to need to all the stuff, including the YouTube. And there's a Discord. Better tell you about the Discord as well. So it's free, and lots of our special guests are members on the Discord and available to answer your questions, which they do. And it's just such a great resource to have if you're a Knights player or a Chaos Knights player. So with no further ado, let me introduce today's guests. First of all, welcome back to the show, regular guest slash basically co-host now, Ratnu Vajja. Welcome. How are you, man?
I'm very well, thank you. I hope you're doing super well. I'm really excited to be talking about Wardogs because that's what I played for a very, very long time. And so it's good to sort of get back into it and learn a lot more from an expert who does much, much more than I do.
Well, what a great segue. It's like you're a pro at this. What a great segue into bringing him onto the program. Dick van der Hust from the Netherlands. Welcome in. How are you over there? I know it's late at night for you.
Yeah, but that's not really an issue. I'm doing great. Just went to a Teams event and ready to talk all about Wardogs. Yeah.
This show, for folks listening who won't know the background, is we've basically now achieved James Cameron, Peter Jackson levels of production because we have done a full dress rehearsal on camera of this whole episode before, and it didn't work. So now we're having to do the whole thing over again. Is everything all right? I can hear young children in the background at somebody's house. Is that Dick? Is everything okay with you? Do you need to take off for a second?
It's being taken care of, I think. Okay. Sorry, I'll mute my mic.
No, that's fine. It's fine. The laughter of children is a joy to behold. So,
except if you don't have children in your house, which is probably would be quite scary from my end.
Yeah, if it was coming from either of our houses, that would be a terrifying prospect because no babies. Right, so let's talk Hound Pack Lance. That's what we're in today, folks. Dick, you mentioned you've been to a tournament recently. A couple of weekends ago, you were at an event with Hound Pack Lance. You better tell us about the event a little bit and also how you went. There is one particular mirror match result I'm keen for you to tell us about, but give us the overview.
Yeah, so I'm a member of Team Netherlands for the WTC team, or at least I'm hoping to be. I'm one of the prospects for now. Obviously, I've been playing a lot of dogs over the last few years. Just for this time, they said, well, they might not be very good in the meta, but we really want to give it a shot. So we're going to give you the dogs, and we're going to let you have some demon allies to accompany them. And we're going to try to get you into the best matchups. And it sort of worked, but also, I mean, it's my conclusion at the end is that it's good, but you need to be very specialized to get as much out of it as you want to, and even then, it's still hard. So you can score 100 points over the entire event, and I think I scored like 63, which is decent, but you always want more, I guess.
Right. The mirror match went okay against Sweden, though, right?
Yeah, it was a Swedish merc playing for the Finnish national team, and that went great. So I played it into the normal Lance Big Night list, and I 20-0'd that one on his table. So I was very pleased with that. Yeah,
nice. Ratnu, your experience with Hound Pack Lance. goes back right to the beginning, obviously. But have you played much with it recently?
Yeah, so sort of in preparation for this episode, I played a few more games with it, and kind of when the Codex came out, I was sort of cycling between the different rule sets, and I played it there as well. So it feels sort of a bit like coming home again after sort of 200, 250 games of decks, and then sort of playing lots of double Gatling gun despoiler, and then sort of pivoting back to dogs once more.
Yeah. I would like future guests to understand that that's the level of commitment now, that the bar has been set, that in preparation for an episode of this show, you go and play a few games with an army before you come on. I just love that. All right. What was the list you took to this event? And normally we save it till the end, but what I'd love to go through right now is the list, first of all, and then maybe we discuss any changes based on the event. You know, what changes you would make to the list with the knowledge you now have.
Ooh, that's an interesting topic. So the list is, I mean, it's all Wardogs. You take 6 carnivores because they're the best dogs. 2 of them are characters, and 1 of them will have the walk through walls, super heavy detachment relic. Then I've got 3 brigands and 4 stalkers, and a few points left over for a unit of Nurglings and a Beast of Nurgle. All of them have as many melters as possible. All of them have the indirect top hat, or the hats of humiliation, as we like to call them. And the stalkers have 2 of them have swords and 2 of them have fists.
Okay.
And that's it.
Right. Ratnu, is anything that stands out to you from the list as a person who's played the army?
I think the sort of basics of Wardog spam for Codex Chaos Knights always seems to be 6 carnivores, and then just whatever sort of takes your fancy after that. I'm quite curious as to why 4 stalkers. Sometimes, people quite like the shoot on death of the brigands, or some people like to, get a few more points in and try and get an extra dog. Like, what was the kind of thought process behind the stalkers? Just lots of forward pressure, or?
Yeah, basically. I've like the most important thing about the detachment is fight on death or shoot on death, and I found that shooting the Gatling gun is pretty mediocre. It just never does what you really want it to do. So the olden times list had 6 brigands and 6 carnivores and 1 stalker, because you had to take 1 stalker. But then those days they all hit on 2s, and the brigands had better AP. Now the brigands hit on 3s, and well, the APs, their datasheet rule is just a little bit less good. So I don't really like brigands at all. I think I would rather take 6 stalkers than those brigands, but I felt like it did need like a little bit high volume shots out of the chain cannons. So that's why I brought 3 brigands. But like if I'd been a little bit more brave, I would have taken 6 stalkers and 6 carnivores and only 1 brigand. Yeah.
Was there any temptation to put in more of the little stuff, like sacrifice 1 dog because you already have a lot of dogs, for things that can, like Nurglings that can screen and still score you points in the right situation, and the crazy good beasts? Is it beasts? No, yeah. What am I thinking of?
Yeah, beasts are amazing. Plague bearers are amazing. Like they solve so many problems for a dog list. I think it would be a valid option to go with more stuff. Yeah. I didn't do it this time because I really like the forward pressure of as many dogs as possible, and I like the idea of having as many dogs as possible. Just having 13 is 1 more than you had in the olden days, so that's also nice. But yes, the list could be better if you take more stuff. Yeah. And
for a question for both of you, actually, Ratnu, is there a difference then in teams versus singles approach to building a Wardogs list?
Yeah.
I'll dictate the lead to Stick is literally the top dog. He's the expert.
So the biggest thing is that at the moment, demons are all right. So in the teams, when you're going to a team event, you can only take a single codex one time. So you can't have two people bringing demons. So
Right.
if one person is a demon main, you cannot take demons as allies for your Chaos Knights. And I do feel that demons are essential to get just about 2 to 3 more differential points out of your opponent or out of your games than just the dogs. If you would go only dogs, you could get 14 dogs, but you would have to take an executioner, and it really sucks, and no relics, and the relic is not game breaking, but it does give you a lot of options which you wouldn't have otherwise. So yeah, I really value the demons, and
yeah, all right. And Ratnu, what about you? If you're building a singles list, for example, as opposed to a teams list, demons obviously important. Is there anything else you're considering?
So demons are in singles, if you have access to and the option for demons, absolutely mandatory. Like I was saying, they solve problems for the army that just Mordog doesn't do. So the access to Sticky from the Plague Bearers, having the option to sort of push up with them as opposed to a dog, threatening an OC2 heroic for then flip a point in your opponent's turn. Like immediately you've got lots of little things that you can do, like the Nurglings and Beasts. The Nurglings facilitate the Stalker scouting. The Beasts are those kind of like low commitment action pieces that you can send out in lieu of a dog, and then suddenly you still have all these assets left behind. I think the crux with any kind of stat check like Wardog spam is how do you create that critical mass, and how do you have those kind of numbers where you still retain the kind of threat and the threat projection, but still have the little things to then do stuff. But yeah, I think there's
well, I guess that's where I was going with the original question, in that the equivalent list, maybe even pre-codex, if I'm building an Imperial Knights list and I wanted to take as many little armigers as I can. I say little, that's relative to the big knights. For folks in other armies, armigers are still reasonably large models, but for us, they're the babies. But if I'm looking at taking as many as I can, does there come a point where you go, well, look, 12 is as good as 13, like in terms of creating pressure and being able to occupy large spaces of the board? 12 is as good as 13. Maybe that 13th can be just more other stuff. Or, in your experience, gentlemen, does that one extra war dog make a massive difference?
I think it comes down to player preference in the end. It's a bit of a cop-out answer.
No, it's a legit answer, though. It's fair enough.
If you take more demons, you can have more stuff, and you'll be better at doing action cards, for example. Right. And you'll be better. You'll have a deep strike thing in your back pocket. You'll have sticky objectives. You'll have more options. But sometimes some player mentality is more about killing your opponent, destroying the enemy models. And I usually don't really mind action cards, because I'll just throw them away for the CP, because the army has 0 CP regeneration otherwise. It comes down to what you prefer, and I really value the dogs. I think I would play the 14 dogs if I could get like a better dog than an executioner, I think.
Okay, and we'll explain that in a second, just the number of points and how that changes things around. The one thing, and this is my bad right at the top, maybe Ratnu, we should do, is just explain the guts of how the army works, or what Hound Pack Lance actually is. So you've got your dread table like everyone else, but what else does Hound Pack Lance mean? Like, what are the army-wide abilities? If I'm rocking up to the table against you and I say, okay, what does your army do? What are you explaining to me? How do you explain it?
So the way that you'd probably describe the army rule is you take 6 carnivores, and then the rest of the rules are kind of irrelevant, because that's all the detachment is. It's 6 carnivores and then whatever. So the actual rule itself is that at the start of your command phase, you pick an enemy unit. It's sort of like a sort of doggy oath of moment, where you get sustained hits against it. Bad oath of moment, yeah. Where you get sustained hits against it. People will be observant enough to know that carnivores already have sustained hits, and the rule doesn't apply on your indirect, so it's really only affecting the stuff that isn't carnivores. So really, it's 6 carnivores, and then make your other dogs slightly better into one thing.
Right.
Obviously, Infernal Lance gives you the option for sustained or lethal on any dog that's not into one target. So immediately you're like, like what's the point in doing this? But really, it's about running that critical mass of dogs that you can't otherwise do because Wardogs become battle line.
Right.
Yeah.
Just-
It's
just-
interesting to explain something though. It's mathematically the sustained would mean the same as hitting on twos, but in practice it sure does not feel like that at all.
Yeah, it kind of relies on rolling sixes, and if you're not real good at rolling sixes, it don't matter.
Exactly.
Does the other than being able to take a stack of war dogs, does the battle line keyword give you anything else or mean anything in this detachment?
No, but just
No.
being able to take 6 carnivores is amazing.
That's the key thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because taking 3 is just for beginners. All right. So what about the enhancements? You mentioned one that one of your carnivores gets the ability to walk through walls, which seems like just an amazingly strong ability. Are there other enhancements that you're considering when you're in the list building stage of this army?
Yeah, I always start out by taking the reroll ones to wound aura, because it's a 6-inch aura and can be enhanced with the dread table. So you could end up with a 9-inch reroll ones to wound aura, and that's just money in the bank. But it's 25 points, and it just never really seemed to be able to fit it. Like back when the carnivores were 140 points, sure, every time I would take them, but now I can't find the points, sadly.
Right. Okay. And you find that of the two, walking through walls is more valuable than having an aura of, just making other stuff better.
Yeah, it goes back to that old adage, like the only thing you can 100% control in a game of Warhammer is your movement phase. So being able to move through terrain and get where you want to be without any restrictions, that's just very useful and sadly better than reroll once to wound, even though in an army that has no other sources of rerolls, I do feel it every time that I don't have it. But just guaranteeing something is usually better in a game of 40k than hoping for something. So yeah,
I feel like Hound Pack Lance started out when the Codex first dropped. People were pretty excited about it, but Ratnu, is it fair to say it's kind of dropped down the pecking order a little bit?
So I felt like it was the other way around, where because Wardogs was so good for so long, we wanted to play the big boys, and then now that we're in a Catan meta and a kind of big stuff meta, one of the things which Wardogs deal with really, really well with your Strength 12 carnivores and your Strength 12 melters and your Melter 4 is killing the big stuff. So I feel like we're sort of going back into the Wardog mines again when it comes to this construction and army archetypes.
Well, you were saying movement is king, and I guess the 6 carnivores, they move 14, right? Man, that's so fast. Is there any ability, or I mean, I guess we should talk about the stratagems in general, but do you have the ability to advance and charge or do anything crazy like that with them?
Sadly not, but the carnivores do get.
That would be busted. That would just be crazy. Anyway, sorry.
But the carnivores do get inbuilt reroll advances and reroll charges, and that means that like I'm the kind of player who would never go for 10 or 9-inch charges reliably, but with carnivores I would, because you get the inbuilt reroll, and sometimes making that 10-inch just flips the game on its head.
Yeah, quite excited about the potential change in the next edition. One of the rules that they've revealed, the ability to roll your charge before you declare your target. So now you've got a carnivore standing 3 inches away from this thing and 9 inches away from the thing you really want to go for, and you roll your charge before you have to say which one you're going into, which seems for this army incredibly strong. But that's another story for another day, maybe. All right, can we talk about, let's go through the suite of stratagems, because the one thing we have touched on already is that you don't have the ability to generate CP. So what we want to find out is this a CP hungry army, and what are the strats you're always going to be wanting to use?
Yeah, it's a very CP intensive army. That's because their own special stratagems, which we're going to talk about in a second, are very good. But you also really want to be able to tank shock and sometimes interrupt combat. So yeah, like, this army really benefits from having a lot of CP, and its own stratagems are really very good. Like it's the main reason, the only reason to play this army, to play this detachment. Of course, there's 6, like in every detachment, but the main money is in the guaranteed fight on death or shoot on death.
Okay.
And the rules are a bit weird because if you get shot to death whilst you are in combat, you can still fight on death. But if you get killed in melee, you cannot shoot in death because of how Big Guns Never Tires works. But shooting on death is very, very, very good.
Sorry, shooting on death or fighting on death, or both? I suppose it depends on the So, but fighting on death with the counter 4 just seems like, yeah,
it's amazing. Like they used to be able to.
And it's 1 CP. Sorry,
it's 1 CP. Yeah. And guaranteed, so no 4+ or 3-up roll. It's just you can automatically do it. And when the codex came out, you could do it even after you had already fought. So you charged into something that would kill you. So you charged, killed 4 Terminators, whatever. Then they would kill you back, and then you would kill 4 more. That's pretty great.
Yeah, James Workshop didn't think about that, right? Because actually, I think Space Wolves used to be able to do that. There was a thing with Space Wolves that I used to be able to, and I know Murder Fan can still, I think, still has that ability. All right, Ratnu, what are the other strats? Because that 1 CP to be able to fight on death with a carnivore is crazy good. Well, why is this so CP hungry? What are the other strats that you're really wanting to get into?
So a good way of kind of thinking about your CP economy for Hound Pack is thinking, really, I aim to be using 2 to 3, maybe even 4 CP in my opponent's turn, and only really using CP in my turn to do things like maybe redraw a secondary or a tank shock for kind of additional damage. So the kind of bread and butter is you can have those 2-for-1 trades with your shoot on death, fight on death. You put out a resource, it shoots something or punches something dies, it then gets shot or killed, shot or punched in return, and then you sort of get those 2-for-1 trades. The other stratagems which are really, really good are the flat 6 reactive move. So not only because you can interfere with your opponent's threat ranges, let's say you're like an opponent commits just 1 melee unit, you can then move back to have like an 11 in or kind of be outside of charge range. You can leverage moving 6 OC around the board really nicely. You can sort of set up for a heroic. Other things that you can do are with the reactive move, sort of very synergistic with the Prey Slayer's Mantle, the walk through walls. You can, because it's just a normal move, you can move 6 inches through a wall in your opponent's turn with the character carnivore. So you can really interfere with, once again, threat, movement, all of that kind of stuff. So really, shoot on death, fight on death, reactive move. And the other things are like uppy downy. Some people call it puppy downy, where if you're within 12, you can take a Wardog off the board and then back on again. And then the other ones, the other one that's really, really good is the fallback shoot and charge for any 1 Wardog. Absolutely massive. Right. And there's a Battle Shock 1, which is 2 CP, really not good. Probably one of the worst strats in the book.
I also learned that it can only proc off one of your characters.
It's even worse.
It's just
it's too let's assume the most expensive stratagem in the book is never getting used. It's never coming up. But man, there's a couple that actually I didn't realize the puppy downy, the uppy downy, that situationally could be really strong, right? Like just you get someone coming in one direction for you and you're suddenly not there anymore. You're on the other side of the board.
Yeah, and also the requirement, you need to have a dog within 12 inches of a table edge to be able to pick it up, and 12 inches off from a table edge is almost the entire board. So that's
really generous, really generous.
Yeah, it's more generous than
it's worth saying. I'm sorry, Steve.
No, carry on.
It's worth saying, Radu, that you call me the war dog expert, but I'd never realized before our previous recording that you could use the Prey Slayer Mantle to walk backwards behind a wall because it's a normal move, and that's what it's used for. I just never thought of that. So yeah, mind blown.
That which is like we're all learning, right? Even at the top level, people are still picking up tricks, which is great. The other one which seems outrageously strong is fallback, shoot, and charge. If for even if you're not shooting, for a carnivore to be able to fall out of combat, if you get something that comes in and doesn't kill it, for it to be able to fall back and then either charge back in or charge in a different direction or whatever, with that 14-inch move, being able to fall back 14 inches and then charge onto a point or do something else, that is crazy good.
One of the things that I learned is that you could just fall forwards and go through engagement range, risk the desperate escape, and then if you pass, you just run into a different target, like you're saying. So you can suddenly have threat protection. There's a really weird other ways as well.
With the fallback, shoot, and charge, or with the 6-inch move, is there any? Because sometimes with the 6-inch move, you've got to move closer to the nearest opponent's unit, or is it just a flat 6 in any direction?
Flat 6, any direction, just get moving.
Pretty good. Okay, so we've established that it's very CP hungry. So you're probably, unless it's absolutely life-saving, not re-rolling a hit or a wound or anything silly like that, you're keeping your CP for those really, really important, really strong things. So in general, Dick, you've got 13 Wardogs on the table. You've got a couple of other little things. How are you deploying this army? Are you starting everything? I mean, I guess it depends on the deployment, what your opponent is, and what the deployment zone looks like, and what the terrain is. But in general, with the list building philosophy, are you looking to be aggressive with it, put everything on the line? Are you cagey with it? Are you keeping things off the table? How do you generally think this plays?
It's funny because in the olden days, when I played into opponents, they would always say, "Well, it's so weird. You play it so differently than anybody else." And I was like, "Yeah, so I just didn't run towards you and get shot."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Yes." I'm like, "Okay, cool." It's not,
well, someone
not
turns
really
up
a
with
compliment.
6 carnivores. People are kind of going, well, I need to be all the way back here and make sure that, or just screening effectively. People are terrified of that ability for you to move and get in their face quickly.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what they're planning for. That's what they assume you're going to do.
Yeah. So my philosophy is like, unless my opponent can really screen off the entire board edge, I will always reserve 2 dogs, like 1 carnivore and 1 brigand, just so that he'll have to screen something. I like to do that, and also because usually you cannot really hide 13 dogs easily on a table, even the big WTC tables. Being able to rapid ingress a carnivore is just amazing to be able to do. And then what you're looking to do is, what I do is I use the stalkers to grab early primary, and I try to divide an enemy army. So what you really want to do is you want to not let your enemy be able to focus all of his anti-tank into a couple of dogs. What you want is him to have to make the decision to split up, because he'll want the chance to kill multiple dogs. So he'll have to split up, making it less certain that he'll kill both. Like we've all been there. Usually when you are and eyeing if you should split fire, you really shouldn't. You should always focus on one target, and you want to force this into an entire enemy army. So what you really want is you want to be able to have your dogs, as many dogs alive, and if you split them up, then maybe out of the 4 you put out, maybe 2 or 3 will live on like a couple of wounds, but that's all you need.
We should discuss, Ratnu, the very different philosophy that you and Dick have, which we know from our previous attempt at recording this episode. You, a little bit like me, are very reluctant to just put things out and watch them die, because it just feels very, feels very personal when your toys die.
It is, yeah, it's so bad. But I wanted to say this last time, but with other armies, I'm also very focused on ensuring my war dollies live. So much so that the tournament I went to previously, I reactive moved a Marine squad into a repulsor from a Catan because I was scared of the Catan. Not realizing only after, like a turn after, I was like, okay, so because I reactive moved into the tank, he could now charge the tank instead of me screening off the tank, and the tank was of course way more important than those 5 stupid guys. so I really fell for that myself as well.
Wow. But Ratnu, you're a more cagey or defensive player, is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I think part of sort of learning and growing and sort of developing as a player is actually learning when to push that button. I think similar to yourself, Dick, it's people are so sort of shocked and surprised where you're like, oh, you're actually not running forwards, you're not just putting everything on the line and pressing W and whatnot. So I think when it comes to the sort of macro and the kind of overall play, it's really, really interesting to hear how you sort of do that divide and conquer approach. I really like the asymmetric trading that Wardogs spam can provide. You just put a resource out, shoot something or punch something, then just let it die, shoot fight on death, do your little bits for your actions, and really having multiple resources alive for 5 turns tends to give better results than having a big all-in. You inevitably whiff because everything hits on 3s and 4s. You have the full force of your enemy army approaching and killing your kind of critical mass, and then it becomes really, really hard to then score points. So resources alive, keeping them safe, using the CP really, really wisely. I really like that kind of style of Wardog spam.
The interesting thing though is that from what I'm picking up is that you're talking about kind of operating in waves where you said, I think, putting 4 out, which sounds like a hell of a lot of things to put out. But then, as you say, if you're manipulating the angles of your opponent so that, say, the 2 over there and the 2 over here, your opponent can't get lines on all of them, so it has to focus one way or the other. So that means of the 4 you put out, you've got 2 left alive, and then you can send another wave. So are you thinking in terms of operating in that like first wave, second wave, third wave kind of mentality when you're putting things out? Because what you don't want, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, both of you, what you don't want is just to put one thing out, because then it's definitely dead.
Yeah, you definitely never want to put out just one, unless it's like a turn 1 and you drew extend battle lines and area denial, and it's like it's a very cagey game. Then sure, you put out 1 and you accept he'll die, and that's just fine. But otherwise, you put out like at least 3. I think I would never put out 1 or 2. I would always put out at least 3. And I know I said earlier 4, but 4 is probably too many, because I would probably just put 1 on every objective if I can, or maybe like 2 on your own expansion to force the primary.
Right. Are you wanting to go first or second with this army? Does it matter?
Yeah, of course it matters. I really value going second because of the missions these days. But I just looked up, like not just like last weekend, I looked up my win rates, and I have a better win rate going first for some reason. So I don't. I think if you maybe if you go first, you can set the tempo of the game more.
Right.
Otherwise, you're more reactive. And even though I like mentally prefer to be reactive, apparently the results are better if I go first.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I consider myself a reactive player, much more so. And it's funny. I don't know, Ratnu, if you would do the same thing, but if I'm playing someone who goes first and puts something on every single objective, that really forces your hand, isn't it? It's also quite unexpected. Like normally you expect people to just go minimum, get the points they need to get, save as many toys as they can. If you've got a guy who's then gone, I'm putting 1 there, 1 here, and 1 here, and they're all reasonably difficult to kill, and killing all 3 of them is going to require you to really move out from behind that wall. That is that really puts the pressure on. Like that's applying a lot of steam early in the game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it sort of creates that question and makes you think, what can I give up? What kind of risks am I willing to take? What's the reliability of my output into this kind of defensive profile? So one of the things that it does really, really well as a set of rules and as a kind of army archetype is it asks the question, which is, can you deal with X number of Wardogs at a certain time? And
Right.
I think one of the things that we said last episode, during the last recording, was when you're looking at an opponent, when you're looking at their army, it's always helpful to kind of have a rough number of how many Wardogs that they can kill. So let's say you're up against a Marine gun line that you think could kill 5 Wardogs on their board choice per turn. One of the ways in which you can limit their efficiency is to either give much less than that. So you're never letting them realize their full killing potential, or give more, which is what we're kind of alluding to when it comes to, you know, making sure that they kind of split their anti-tank. And because when you give more, 5 might die, but then you've got 8 left to then run forward and do the killing and play the game and play the mission and whatnot.
Right. And how important is, when the first wave goes out, making sure that the second wave is then ready for the clapback? So the second wave of toys is in, if you've
Crucial.
got 1 on each objective, for example, you know they're going to have to stick the guns out this way or that way. So then you've got to be in a position to then go, okay, if they do stick out a turret to point a gun down this way, I can then clap back, right? That's got to be the way you're looking at it, because otherwise you're sticking things out in the middle for nothing.
No, exactly. It's the most important thing. Like if you don't stage correctly, then you might as well not put out anything.
Yeah. And that's a mistake that, like, I certainly
We all
made
make.
when I first started. Yeah, it's a mistake you make and go, oh, now I see what I did wrong. Okay.
Yep. I also wanted to add something, Ratnu. Something else I try to do is every time, it's not just with this army, but every time I start a game and I look at my opponent's list, I count the amount, the units they have when all the characters are attached and when everything is together. Because like one of the weaknesses I have and we have as knights is that you don't have a lot of activations, and I learned through that I want to limit the amount of activations my opponent has. That means that because of all the indirect the dogs have, you can always at least touch something or threaten something, and I really want to limit the amount of units they have as quickly as possible. So I don't mind killing the little trash units, because that means that at a certain point in the game, your expensive executioner has to go back, press a button somewhere and do an action and not shoot. So it's a cheaper way to get rid of another asset.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is interesting when you're playing an army that has so few models or so few units, and then you look across the board, and people talk about playing a trading game all the time, but you look across at the Drukhari army or whatever it is on the other side, and you're like, I've got 18 units, like, or 20 units on the other side of the table. How am I supposed to trade with that? But then in a lot of cases, they will have you putting 3 Wardogs out. To kill a Wardog takes more than one little unit of chaff, right? If they want to deal with it or take the point off you or whatever, they're going to have to commit 2 or 3 or a couple of tanks. Even a lot of the time, even just committing 1 tank, if it whiffs and doesn't do the job, so people have to overcommit, because 14 wounds is a reasonably high number of wounds to take off a thing.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah. That's the first time that's been said on this podcast, Dick. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Where the whole entire answer to the question was, yep, you're right. And we move on. Okay. So one of the most common questions I think people had in the Discord, which we will get to, but it also is an obvious one that should be asked, is are you ever looking at switching out a couple of little knights for a big knight? I guess you'd have to drop 3, right, to get any of the big knights that you want. So is that ever a trade that you are willing to make in this detachment?
Personally, for me, it would not be a valid trade. And that's not just because I value 3 dogs more than 1 big. I think if it would be 2 to 1, then I would be more inclined to do it. But just the thought of 3 carnivores as opposed to a single rampager is just not even the same ballpark for me. Right. But the main issue why I would never do it or never advise anyone to do it is because you never want to fall into the trap of being able to get to let your opponent pick fixed objectives, fixed secondary objectives against you. Because if you take another big knight, then you'll have at least 4 characters, and 4 characters just means that your opponent will be able to take assassination and big game hunter into you, and he'll get points, and that's not gonna feel nice.
Ratnu, would you ever do it if you're playing Hound Pack Lance? And we're approaching this from the there is no 100% right, wrong answer. Different players approach things different ways. So, is it something you would do? Take a big knight?
No, I think all you're getting from the big knight is the army rule, which is the Harbingers of Dread and the spooky table. I think that's not enough to warrant the loss of that critical mass, because the whole point of the rule set is you want to create that critical mass. Interestingly, a few weeks ago there was a list that went 5-0 with like a Desecrator, 8 Wardogs, and like a Great Unclean one in Hound Pack Lance. I have no idea how that person played it, but props, like hands off to
That's very cool.
Able to like make that work.
Yeah, but it is funny though, right? So this happens, I think, more with teams events, but you quite often will look through lists and you'll see a list and you'll go, I don't get it. I don't understand how it works. And then it does really, really well. And it's just because the person writing the list gets it, understands it, or knows some of the tricks, or has some idea of, how to put things together and layer things and make them work. But quite often you'll look at a list and go, I'm not fully understanding it or seeing it. But yeah, sometimes you look at like that, a big knight and a big demon, and then only 8 Wardogs in the Wardog detachment. Doesn't make sense.
5 characters. It's like my nightmare.
Yeah. But is there validity in, because quite often people talk about that, someone rocking up to the table. I went through a bunch of games and a couple of events just playing 5 big knights. And obviously that was the first thing in a lot of games is people are going, well, I'll just take assassinate and bring it down. That's fine. But then that gives you the ability then to control the first couple of turns of going, well, you're not getting any secondary points for a couple of turns. And then that sort of sets the ball rolling with a bit of a panic. So it does in some ways give you the ability to go, if they do that, then you get to control the narrative anyway.
Yeah. It's maybe it's also like PTSD from olden days that I don't like it. That could very well be, because if I would face your 5 big knights with my 6 Wardogs, 6 carnivores, I would be like, yes, I'll come, I'll take them. No problem, that's gonna work. But these days, not a lot of armies can innately like reach out and grab. Like Blood Angels isn't the bee's knees anymore, and world eaters aren't good anymore either. So perhaps it's more of a valid option these days, and I just didn't go with the time.
Hey, going back to the big knight question as well, the other thing I think is a lot of the things that can kill a little knight in one activation can also kill a big knight in one activation, right? If you say you're putting a Vindicator or something with rerolls out to kill a baby knight, that could also kill a big knight, and then you're down 500 points instead of 150. So it just feels a lot worse when you lose one big knight in one turn than it does when you lose a couple of little ones.
And all the stress also don't work on the big knights.
Right. Yeah.
Which is huge. Like if you could have a fight on death rampager, sure, I would probably consider it. But since that's not a thing, not doing it.
Yeah. As Ratnu pointed out, when you're getting the big knight, it is literally just for the data sheet of the big knight and the dread table, and that's it.
Like, every now and again, I do build a list with as many Wardogs as I can fit and a tyrant, because I really like the idea of a tyrant. He's just never good enough.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to ask about is just the difference in terms of when you're playing very shooty, we've mentioned the gun line, versus playing a Blood Angels or a World Eaters or something you just know is going to run in and get into combat. What are the different approaches, or is there a different approach, or are you still just playing to your game plan? How do you approach those two different scenarios?
Well, if you're playing a melee Russia army, then you really want to keep all your CP in your back pocket for both fight on death and an interrupt, because they will charge you. Their first activation will kill one knight. You'll fight on death, and then you will interrupt with the other thing they charged. and that can blunt your enemy, but it's still hardish. And with shooty armies, you use the reactive move a lot more. You use the puppy downy, as Ratnu said, a lot more, and you usually get less opportunities to use your fight on death because you're not in combat as much as you would be with other games.
Right.
So yeah, it's a very different approach. Like I feel like against it also depends on what kind of shooty army it is. Like if it's more concentrated shooting, like with tanks and stuff, you'll try and rush them, in fact. But something like guard with many layers of infantry, you just have to play the primary game and try and kill as many dudes with indirect as possible, and hope that their scions don't kill you all in one go. Yeah, it's a very different game.
So, Ratnu, what are if you're playing a teams event, and I think teams and individual obviously is a very different situation. Oh, my camera's slipping. I guess, yeah, doesn't matter what the situation is, teams or individuals. What are the tough matchups? I guess if I'm asking, if you're playing a teams event and you're taking Hound Pack Lance, what are the matchups you want to avoid or tell your captain you're not interested in?
Sure. So I think, unfortunately for my captains, my matrix is like the worst matrix ever. It's just, oh yeah, like it's just red, 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 red. Someone could like rock up with like 10 or like 50 tactical marines, and I'd be like, yeah, this guy's got some like secret source somewhere that I don't know about. We'll just put it as a 0, you know. But I think
that player, it's like every
when I
team
see
has that
tactical
player
marines,
that has
I'm
zero
easy.
confidence into every matchup. No, it's all red. It's all orange and red. Just leave. Just I don't want to do it.
So I think the things that have that sort of deeper shade of red would be like melee pressure.
Yes, for sure.
I think because you don't have the invul in melee, and if someone just walks up to you with, say, like 100 Crusaders with the Blood Surge in Gladius with a reactive move as well, I think there are a few win paths for all dogs within that kind of matchup. So having melee pressure. Or having opponents that can answer that question of can I kill 10, 12, 14 dogs, that's probably something that would be like a red in teams. Whereas stuff where you can get value from your indirect, like elves, like killing Dark Eldar sisters and stuff from behind walls, amazing. Where you can interfere with primary a lot, so low leadership armies, because you've got lots more vectors for your 9-inch below starting strength bubble. Those are armies that typically I think that dogs can do a bit better into, but I'm sure Dick has a much better matrix and like knows a lot more about the armies and archetypes that we're good into.
Well, we took the army to the teams event because we wanted to hunt Necrons, basically, because all of the dogs should be able to at least very much damage a Catan, and if you gang up on one with like 2 to 3 dogs, you should be able to kill it. And you can also deal with warriors either by maybe not killing them, but by removing them in such a way that you can be the one standing on the objectives and them not being there, and also forcing more battle shocks. So that's what we really wanted to do. And also the dogs have a good matchup into, well, other big stuff. So other knights, tank-focused armies, when they don't have like 6 lancers, because or 3, I guess, is the most you can take. But like if I see 2 lancers, then I'm also putting stuff on red. But like tanks or mechanized lists or bikes, that's usually a good thing. And as Ratnu said, elves, really good. What else is good? Like I think stuff that's really good in the meta at the moment, such as guard. On the right table, you should be able to get a droish result out of guard, which is good enough in teams.
Yeah. And guard's an army that a lot of other people really don't want to face as well. Like people, a lot of other armies. So having you or having your
Fall on
ability
that
to face
grenade.
guard and neck. If you're saying I want to go into guard and Necrons, I think most team captains are going, okay, cool. No one else wants that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ultramarines is a bit weird. It can be good, but like not on their preferred table. If they get their table, then you should run with your tail between your legs like a proper dog. But if you can like get the game at the end of the pairings process, then it's something you could be good into. Just because the thought of fighting on deafing a carnivore into a Victor's Guard unit should make you smile. It's just funny.
Hey, I'm just conscious of the amount of time we've already taken up for both of you gentlemen late in your evenings over there. Maybe we race through some of the questions in our Discord. I did ask people in the Patreon to ask some questions, and the only questions we got were kind of joke questions, like why would you not just play 5 big knights? So let's just jump straight to.
Do you want me to still answer that? Because it's
sure,
obviously fun.
if you have an answer to that, go for it.
Yeah. So for me, it's all about player style, as I alluded to before. I really like having as many activations as possible, and I feel like Wardog spam is the best MSU army there is at the moment. Like every dog can do almost anything by itself. That's why they're interchangeable for me. It's like I feel comfortable throwing them away because I know that the dog that will replace him can do the same job as well. And if you take 5 bigs, whilst it's very fun, and I also played 5 bigs, it's amazing. It's also all your eggs into 5 little baskets. And if one dies, it really sucks. Whilst if one of my dogs dies, I'm like, there's 12 more.
Yeah, it does suck when you lose a big knight. I would say Lords of Dread though is very good into the mirror matchup. Like Lords of Dread is great into the Imperial Knights, 5 big knights. They just do good into big stuff. Yeah. All right, let's go through some of the questions. The first question from Forge Blind Sukal is around the Moirax, which I think we've all agreed none of us is interested in. But what would the fix be to a Moirax? Is it just points, do we think?
Yeah, I think last time we or at least I discovered, you guys knew, I didn't know, that it had a free heroic intervention, which means it's a tool you can use. But we just also discovered it's like 150 or 140 points, so the same as a carnivore or a brigand, and that's just too much. Like its output is not good enough at all. So I would take it like if he's 130 points, I would take him instead of the executioner in my 14 dogs list, I think.
Okay. Yeah, it was 160 and they brought it back to 150. And it's a free heroic intervention for Imperial Knights. Is it the same thing, Ratnu, for...
Yeah, same as Chaos?
Okay, yeah. For Wardog Spam says that mini enthusiast, why do people shun the Executioner and the Huntsman? Which I think you have done.
I really like both, actually. I really like both.
Right, okay.
So the Executioner, I think, is because it's the only Wardog that has like long range that isn't indirect, and because it's like damage 3 as well, you can activate safely over 5 turns typically in some matchups, as opposed to only having to be able to activate once, which I think gives you a different kind of value. And in games and matchups where you don't have optimal damage profiles, because AP1 damage 3 isn't always the best, particularly with the AP1. You can just throw it out forwards and let it die, which gives you sort of time and space and breathing room for your other more important resources to stay alive and then play the mission. So I really like the Executioner, and I think the Huntsman, there's a guy called Cal who really champions it, who runs double Huntsman in Infernal, and he loves it as a tool to kind of crack open those vehicles, and as a kind of anti-Catan tool because it gets to reroll wounds against monsters and vehicles. But it's not about indirect, which is the crux.
This is my main problem. Like if they would have indirect, I would probably consider them both more, like especially the Huntsman. Like who doesn't value the idea of 2 outflanking Huntsmen rerolling once to wound into a transport or whatever? This just sounds amazing. But yeah, as I said before, I really like the indirect, and it's important enough for me to take the stalkers over huntsmen. And also, I really like the other rules. A stalker has more than a huntsman, and an executioner. I'm sorry, Ratnu, it's just the worst, dude. Like, yes, it has value if you sacrifice it. That is true, but like, if you just spend 10 more points, then you would have a better piece to sacrifice, and it would also do some damage. Like, I also like the long range firepower can be good, but cover is everywhere on our board. So AP1 just means AP0. You're not killing any Victrix with your damage-free guns when you're shooting at them from across the table. Sorry.
Is there any way to up the AP value, like on objectives or
no?
Not in Hound Pack. Not in Hound Pack.
And it's datasheet rule. It's also the worst. Like, I'm not even sure what it is. It's either if you are at full strength, you're +1 to hit, or if you're below half strength, you're +1 to hit as the executioner. Right. And I think it's the latter one, which is the worst one, and they're both bad rules. I don't think I've ever used it.
Appleheart has asked for Wardog spam how many big knights and how many allies, which we've already covered off. Appleheart, thank you for your question. Mevin, how do you decide what to save your CP for when playing Hound Pack? Again, I think we've kind of covered that off. So there are, depending on the matchup you're facing, some just essential strats. So you're just saving it for those. Ratnu's answer on this was fantastic. So go back to the beginning and have another listen to that. Men and knights. Dan, under what circumstances would you swap out some dogs for a big knight? We've covered it off. Micah, when using this detachment, is it better to send all the dogs out at once or smaller waves? I love that we've already answered all these questions. It's like we could see.
It's almost like we knew what we were doing.
Almost like we've read these before. If James Workshop called you up and asked you to create a war dog to fill a missing niche, what would you make? What are the holes at the moment?
A last cannon dog. Like, slap two to four last cannons on a dog, have actual long range firepower. Yes, I would be all over this.
Yeah, that's basically one of the Admech Las chickens. Just take one of those.
Yeah, or a ballistic dreadnought, but then with a free up save. Yeah.
Right.
I think one of the things that dogs lack is a good Overwatch, because the Moirax Overwatch probably isn't all that. So having something that has maybe an AP2 Flamer with Ignores cover, or like a Strength 6 Flamer with Ignores cover, just to kind of threaten extra damage out of phase, I think that'd be pretty nice.
I'm just going to check what the AP is on the new Big Knight, which we all bought and never put on the table. No, that's the even newer one. No, there's a new Chaos Knight.
The Ruinator.
The Ruinator. Yeah, the Ruinator. And I bought it immediately. It's still in the box on the shelf. And it's,
I don't know if you guys ever watched this.
It's flavor. It's AP1.
Oh, okay. There's a cartoon called Phineas and Ferb. Are you either of you familiar with Phineas and Ferb? Of
course.
Yeah. The bad guy in Phineas and Ferb always was coming up with these inventions to, take over the tri-state area of New York. And he gave every single one of them had the ATOR ending of the word. So the Ruinator sounds like one of his crazy inventions, and I just can't unthink it whenever I hear the term Ruinator. It just sounds like a weird made-up thing, which it is, I guess.
Which it is, yeah.
Yeah. Alex, the second, what are the weaknesses of Wardog spam and what would cover it?
I think weaknesses-wise, melee pressure, anything that can answer the kind of 14 dog stat check.
Yeah.
How you can cover it is to either present that critical mass so your opponent can't deal with all the dogs at once, or it's to invest or have ways to have more defensive tools, because the only real defensive tool we have is the 5-up invul, which is range only, and the 6-inch reactive move, which you can use defensively. So trying to make it so that either you put out everything or you put out enough little things that your opponent can't leverage all their output in the same place or in the same way that's super effective against you.
I don't know why you two top players don't just take advice from a guy who's much worse, statistically speaking, than either of you, and drop a dog and take more little things that you can use to go and get points or screen, or, that that thereby overcomes some of those shortcomings. It doesn't make sense.
I appreciate the joke, and you're totally right, Steve. But like stuff, just to be a typical Dutchman and answer a joke earnestly, it's the usual profiles of those demons you would take would also just immediately crumble to melee pressure.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it wouldn't really be an effective screen, sadly. But Ratnu gave an amazing answer. The only thing I would add is keep your dogs a little bit farther apart from each other than you would otherwise, because you never want to give up 2 dogs to a single charging unit.
People watching on YouTube, my camera is slipping, and I'm trying to fix it. It just keeps on. It must have been drinking before the episode because it's just starting to droop now. All right, a couple more. Robbie, how do you feel about 12 slaughter claws, 6 carnivores, and 6 stalkers with claw?
Love it.
That sounds like a Steve's list. Yeah.
I think I mentioned
kind of list.
Yeah, I mentioned this before. Like, I think if I was a little bit more brave, I would take this. I think, so next time, Although I do think you would take some swords because, like, I didn't mind bringing the swords to the last event I went to, and it was an experiment because I used to take all claws. But like into the guard matchup, you really want a couple of swords. So I would take like 2 or 3.
I'm really hopeful that this has helped out folks who are thinking about getting into Hound Pack Lance, or maybe have, been kind of looking at it as an option for teams or whatever. And this has kind of helped out answer some of the questions that you've had, or maybe you've been playing it for a little while and you're just struggling to get across that kind of 1 and 4, 2 and 3, 3 and 2 line. And you're thinking, you just want a little bit of extra help. So hopefully this has helped you out. Dick, thank you so much for being here late at night. Ratnu, thank you for helping us out as well. I really appreciate the expertise of both of you gentlemen. And I would love to have you, Dick, back on the show another time if you're keen and able to be a part of the...
Anytime. I'd love to.
In the meantime, folks, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And you can, if I just say it again, 40kbynight.com. That's where you get all the access to all of the other episodes and the merch and the dice and everything else. Check us out on Discord. Check us out on Patreon. Thanks for your support. On behalf of Dick and Ratnu, I'm Steve Joel, and this has been 40K by Night.